We're excited that you have decided to join me and to talk about something that I am so passionate about, and that is breast cancer. Oftentimes, we think of breast cancer just during the month of October. But do you know that every 8 seconds that a woman is diagnosed with breast cancer? Oftentimes, we don't think about breast cancer other than in October. So I'm waiting for folks to come on in the room. Come on in, come on in, come on in. And let's talk about this. Because we know as African Americans, oftentimes we do not want to talk about breast cancer. But we really need to have this conversation about breast cancer. You know why? Because it is not only women that get breast cancer, men get breast cancer too. So it's important that you recognize the signs, that you get your mammogram, that you go for any additional testing that may be done. Also, I want to talk about my book. Now, my book has been out a while, but I really haven't done anything here as of late. So I really want to today talk about one, what are some of the social determinants of breast cancer, and provide you some statistics in hope, in hope that you will make the conscious decision to schedule your mammogram and maybe even take someone to an exam. Encourage someone to get an exam. And there's a lot of organizations that are in states that provide free mammogram testing. And a lot of the insurances is actually covered in that as well. So, for those who don't know me, my name is Dr. Tanja Thompson, and typically I'm on here talking about I'm the conflict resolution buster. One thing for sure and another thing for certain. Conflict is inevitable. And you know what? I've actually had some very horrific situations relative to my medical journey, having breast cancer once, twice, and even finding a lump the third time. Also, with my son, Tyson Vegas Thompson, that's another whole thing. At the age of 14, he had a liver and kidney transplant. And then just here in 2021, January, and it's coming up soon, that he had a kidney transplant and he is doing fabulous. So I'm trying to think, where should I get started? And there's so many places to start relative to this breast cancer journey. There's so much information. So sometimes it's difficult, even as we are navigating this breast cancer, our medical issues, our medical concerns. Where do we start? Well, today I'm going to actually start with some statistics, and these statistics are relative to Black women and how Black women, we really need to change. We really need to close this gap from where we are to where we should be as it relates to even other ethnicities. So let me give you some statistics. 40% more, Black women have a 40% more chance to die of breast cancer than white women. So do you know what that means is that we may get breast cancer at the same rate, and actually Black women are diagnosed at a lower rate than white women, but we have a 40% more chance of dying of breast cancer. And I'm going to talk about what that looks like in talking about some of the social determinants that affect our mortality, meaning staying alive even once we're diagnosed with breast cancer. Black women have a lower 5-year relative breast cancer survival rate compared to white women. So that means that even once we're diagnosed, sometimes we will die faster or quicker than white women. So it means that our survival rate isn't as high. And I'm going to talk about that as well. We are also more likely to be diagnosed with breast cancer at a younger age. Also, with that younger age, we're also at a later stage in the breast cancer journey than white women. Meaning, for an example, a lot of times in any type of cancer, they look at stages: stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4. So they're basically saying that even once we're diagnosed at a younger age, we may be diagnosed at stage 3 or even stage 4, meaning that our survival rate has gone down, which goes back to my point number 2 when I was talking about the survival rate, a 5-year survival rate for Black women. I want to just briefly, as I on my short that preceded this live, I talked about my book. And in 2019, I wrote a book. And what really prompted me to do that, to write that book, was the 35-day government furlough. So at the time, federal employee, and from December of 2018 to December 2019, we were furloughed for 35 days. So you think of what you're going to do. So I actually decided to write a book. Now, let me tell you how I came up with writing the book. I never thought that I would write the book. Individuals had been telling me, Tanja, you need to write a book. You need to write a book. It's like, I don't know anything about writing a book. But during that time, I went and you start cleaning up, you're going through old papers, and especially like myself, I always keep journals. So I was actually looking at my journals, and I realized that I had an undiscovered book, meaning that I had charted that diagnosis, more so the second diagnosis with breast cancer. And I put all of that together to form my book. And this is it: What to Expect When You Wasn't Expecting Breast Cancer. So that's me there on the cover. And it really takes a deep dive through the rawness of the day-to-day struggles that I went through dealing with my breast cancer diagnosis. So my first diagnosis was in 2005. The second diagnosis was 2010. And because it was a reoccurrence, I had to go through chemo and radiation. The thing about that is that with the first diagnosis, I could hide. I didn't tell anybody that I had breast cancer other than my family. I didn't tell people at work. And I think maybe some of that was due to not knowing anyone with breast cancer. So you think about in 2005, breast cancer was a death sentence. Yeah. Most people back then, when they were diagnosed with breast cancer, the survival rate was very low. I don't know what the statistics were back then, but the survival rate was low. There wasn't a lot of information as we see now, where the internet is full of, information and sometimes misinformation. There wasn't any resources like that. And to be perfectly honest, I was less than 30 when I was diagnosed. Along with that, I didn't know anyone that had breast cancer. So you can only imagine how it felt to be diagnosed or to learn that you had breast cancer and you really didn't have anybody to talk to. When I asked my mom, I asked other people, they just shrugged their shoulders because they didn't know anybody with breast cancer. And one of the things about the Black community, African American community, whatever we calling ourselves today, we don't talk about our health. We don't talk about sicknesses. As a breast cancer advocate, as a advocate for individuals that are going through different types of medical issues, I very often hear either family members or friends ask the question, how do I support this person? How can I help this person? Because we don't talk about it. So as that advocate, I'm usually that voice. I'm usually that person can guide the individual through or even navigate through the medical, the healthcare provider, and or what does it actually mean? Because you're getting all of this information, all of this lingo that you don't even recognize, you don't even know, you're not familiar with. And our healthcare providers can truly do a better job at informing our people, our individuals about their diagnosis, that humanity, that part about caring about the person and not just seeing them as a number. So I want to read an excerpt, just a little bit about my breast cancer journey. I want to go back. I actually want to go to, see, what is this? This is January. I actually want to go back to almost when I was diagnosed. And my first chemo treatment. So chemo treatment, I want to do chemo treatment number. I want to do number. I'm going to do chemo treatment number. Oh, that picture is horrific. Chemo treatment number 1. Today I received my first chemotherapy regimen at the Loudoun and Nova Health System in Leesburg, Virginia. I had a wonderful view of trees, the parking lot, and low-rise building. It reminds me of a saying my late grandmother used to say, got me here looking like a monkey, because we were looking out the window. In this case, it fit. I arrived at 9 o'clock and departed at 13:30 for military. Phil stayed a few minutes. He looked around, went and got some coffee, patted me on my head and said, call me when you get ready. If you need me, I'm a few minutes away. Anyone that knows me knows I need my Starbucks coffee in the morning. Absolutely. Because of the toxicity, the drug TCH are infused intravenously very, very slowly. So thinking about arriving at 9 o'clock and leaving around about 1:30, that's a long time. So Taxotere is given over 60 minutes. Carboplatin is given over another 60 minutes. And Herceptin is given over 90 minutes. They are given one by one with 5-minute intervals. I communicated with about 10 folks, texting, talking on the phone, and responding to emails while waiting for the drugs to finish and infuse. Not one time did I have any adverse reactions to to any of the drugs. Actually, I'm feeling pretty good right now. I have been told it will hit me, yeah, in a few days. The nurse was very surprised at how I was tolerating the chemo drugs. Don't be mistaken, I respect chemo drugs and also recognize this was my first session. While speaking to my sister Cindy and brother Russell, they informed me that some of the family members were fasting. They were fasting for me. What a beautiful thing. They fasted from the time chemo was given until it ended. Prayers work. I have a praying family, and I know my grandmother's praying and looking down on me from heaven. I text my brother Russell, who is also fasting. Then this is what I got as a response from my niece Joy, in another text. Hey, crazy brother Russell and big head nephew Junior, bestie sister Cindy, me, the greatest niece Joy, and your wonderful mother Dorsey May are looking for you. That message makes me think that our public schools are doing a great job teaching language arts. Humor helps. It truly does. For those who have some time to spare to sit with a friend, I have at least 11. Can you imagine? 11 more treatments. And if you see that I'm getting flush, that's because with chemo drugs, a lot of times they still stay in your system. I sometimes even have chemo brain because of what it does to your system. So you think about chemo. Chemo is a poison that is in your system purposely, and that its job is to kill. So a lot of times it's killing those cells, even sometimes the good cells that's in your body. You may be wanting to ask the question, am I going to lose my hair, get sick, feel tired? Probably yes, and maybe no. Time will tell. If you see me with some new hair, you know the answer for one of the questions. Yep, I lost the hair. Hey, Cindy. I'm going to go on to the October the 2nd. Now, I want to go. Oh, this is the part I want to talk about. Really want to talk about the cost. The cost of when you are a breast cancer survivor, some of the things that you go through, especially with how much things cost. So I want to start here. So what I said was, I'm here for my pedicure. That's when I came for my treatment. Where should I sit? The place went silent. Then one of the nurses started to snicker. The irony of this is during chemo, your nails become brittle and dark. So the medical oncologist suggests no manicures or pedicures during chemo for sanitation reasons and to reduce the chance of infection. My comments seem appropriate for this situation. I too wanted to bring some life and humor to a place that reeks of death, anguish, depression, and despair. Today's session was only 30 minutes. I think it was longer than that. Herceptin is not a chemotherapy drug. It works by stopping the growth of cancer cells, in this case HER2 patients, and is given quickly for 52 weeks with every 3 weeks or within chemo drugs. Here's a little known fact. Herceptin is made from the Chinese hamster ovary cell protein. What? I said, ugh. Chemo changes the taste buds, and guess what was the first to go? Coffee. I have not had a drink of coffee in 5 days. I know that's really hard to believe, even for me. I don't even like the smell. Those that know me know I could not function without my daily Starbucks Java before chemotherapy. Today the doctor told me that my vitamin D level is low and my white blood cell counts are also low. I have a little head cold and a fever, 99.8, which doesn't sound like much, but it feels like 101.3. The goal is to keep below 100.5. If it gets to 100.5, I must call the doctor and possibly go to the hospital. So needless to say, I'm staying in the house with no contact with the public. I would like to give my brother Chris and his girlfriend Nisi a shout out for completing a 5K breast cancer run with his job in Fort Wayne and to support breast cancer's awareness. There, they wore my name on the front of their shirts. As I was leaving on Friday, Patty came in and the lady asked her the same question and she said, "Oh, she's here for her manicure and pedicure here." So let me just give you an idea of how much I talked about the Herceptin, the 3 types of chemo drugs. So one visit with the chemotherapy infusion, the carboplatin, they called it HCT, the Herceptin, that one, and now this was back in 2010. The cost was $16,978 just for one infusion. Mind you, I had to go every 3 weeks for well over 2 to 3 months, probably longer than that. It was long for these chemo treatments. Can you imagine the outer costs? What you have to pay for chemo and chemo drugs? Well, that's what I want to read. So now I want to talk about, and sometimes you may hear about the social determinants of breast cancer. And in the statistics, I just want to go back and say that one of the things I talked about was that Black women have a 40% more chance to die of breast cancer. We have sometimes a 5-year survival rate, and we're diagnosed at a younger age and a later stage. So what are some of the things that are prompting, not only Black women, but other women too, relative to breast cancer? One, age. As I mentioned earlier, Black women are being diagnosed at a younger age and a later stage. So think about the stages. As I mentioned earlier, stage 1 is the early stage. That means you have more of a chance of a survival because now you've caught it early. And usually catching it early means that you're going and getting your mammogram. So I want to ask the question here, how many of you have gotten your mammogram or have scheduled your mammogram either in 23 or 24? If you haven't, you need to. Another thing is ethnicity. There's a lot of data about breast cancer and Black women with breast cancer. As I mentioned earlier, we are diagnosed less than white women. So let's just use this. And this is a clean number. If there's 100 white women diagnosed with breast cancer, there may be 80 Black women diagnosed. But if you talk about the survival, white women, let's say white women will live longer than Black women. Now think about that, because a lot of times we won't go for the follow-up, even if we find something, and sometimes it's financial. The financial constraints relative to breast cancer. And also think about that, and you see it now, if you go to the doctor, there's a copay. Can you imagine that copay every 3 weeks, sometimes $75, sometimes $100. And we're not even talking about radiation that you go to every single day, 5 days a week, over a period of a couple of months. Can you imagine paying $75 and $100 every single time? Every single time. And fortunately, there are so many, and you have to do your research. There are a number of organizations in your state that will offer financial support. I went to an event probably about 2 months, probably about a year or so ago. And someone's talking about this organization called Step Sisters. And it's not step sisters, but it's actually steps where women are taking steps to eradicate breast cancer. That's the Department of Veteran Affairs goal, is to eradicate breast cancer. But a young lady was telling me that she had applied for a grant with that organization where her radiation bill and what she had to pay was well over $1,000. And that organization paid in full her radiation bill. Because also think about this too. A lot of times, some women have to stop work. So if you stop and work, that means you have no income coming in, especially depending on what type of work you're doing. If you're doing a laborious job, if you have a job that you're not getting any type of benefits, it's difficult to hold down a job. So is there financial support for people that eat? Girl, you need to stop. I would just want to know, is cornstarch, is that a determination that someone may have breast cancer? You know anyone to get breast cancer because they eat starch? I don't know. Ooh, Russell. Does radiation burn? Put it like this. Because this was my second diagnosis with breast cancer, the first diagnosis, I had a bilateral mastectomy. So what that means is that they took everything, took all of my breasts, took the tissue, everything. But they also took the skin that was with that. So you think about a balloon. When you have a balloon, when it's not blown, it's, like this. But when you blow it up, the elasticity weakens, and more that you put into it, it has a tendency to burst. Well, that's basically how my skin was. So when I went through radiation, and let me see if I can find this picture. When I went through radiation, it burned me so bad that I had third-degree burns. And it's in my book, but I don't want to show it here. But this is the picture of what my back looks like from the radiation. Now, you would think that picture there would be the entry point, but that was the exit point from my radiation burns. Oh, okay, Cynthia, the gun's down up front. That's the radiation burn. So you can only imagine what the front of my breast looks like. It looks worse than that. So yes, radiation burns and it hurts immensely. So another thing, transportation is a social determinant of breast cancer, or those diagnosed with breast cancer. Diet, education, family, religion, silence, starting your menstrual period before the age of 12, and starting menopause after age 55. So I actually had to go do some research to find out what that actually meant. What that actually means is that the hormones for breast cancer stays in your body longer. So When it's in your body longer, means that you have a higher chance of breast cancer. Transportation. Sometimes, depending on where you live, because zip code makes a difference, as we know, where you live makes a difference. Think about some of the places where there's no trees, where there's no grass, but nothing but concrete. Every corner, there's a liquor store or a fast cash, but no place for you to get good quality food. So think about that. If you don't have access, so a lot of this has to do with us having access. So as a advocate, healthcare advocate, as a breast cancer survivor, two-time breast cancer survivor, I am always looking at ways to help women in navigating this place that we call breast cancer. So again, my name is Dr. Tanja Thompson, and I am a two-time breast cancer survivor. And sometimes you will hear me say, I can't sing like Cindy, conflict resolution buster. One thing for sure and another thing for certain, conflict is inevitable. Please don't forget to subscribe, to like, and to share this so that I can get my numbers up on social media, on YouTube. So I also want to talk about how can we help other individuals and ourselves in being proactive relative to breast cancer. One, understanding and knowing that there is help out there. You're not alone, and you don't have to feel like you're alone navigating breast cancer. Knowing also, someone already asked, financial assistance. There's actually transportation assistance that when you're diagnosed, that some hospitals or clinics will give you a card where someone can pick you up. And some places actually offer Uber as well. We also want to make sure that we get quality. You hear the word? Quality oncology. And oncology is when you've been diagnosed and now you got to go through sometimes radiation as well as chemo. Also, proactive and quality screening. Feeling that when you go for your mammogram or when you have to have that second appointment, let me tell you this, do not go alone. If you ever, doctor tells you to come back because of a breast cancer diagnosis, take someone with you. I didn't take anyone with me when I was diagnosed the first time. I only heard 10% of what the doctor said. And I probably heard less than that. And this is what I heard. Wah, 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 wah. So take someone with you. Or better yet, have someone, if you can't take someone with you, get someone on the phone that can be there to help you either ask the questions and or be there so that they can at least write some of the things down. And also go with questions as well, because you have to be an advocate for yourself, because very often we allow the medical professionals to tell us, because a lot of times they're not listening, because they don't look like us. And they already sometimes come with preconceived notions. I had to be an advocate for myself with the second time. Because when I felt the lump, I went to the breast center. And you know what the doctor told me? She told me I was being paranoid because this was my second diagnosis, and that she didn't feel anything. But I didn't let that stop me. So don't let it stop you when a doctor tells you something. Ask questions. Don't live in silence. Don't live in shame because you've been diagnosed with breast cancer or any type of cancer or any type of disease or any type of condition, any type of infirmity. Talk to those that you trust where they will offer a listening ear. Again, this is Dr. Tanja Thompson, conflict resolution buster, breast cancer survivor, breast cancer fighter, breast cancer thriver. Yes, all of those things. Breast cancer advocate. Don't forget to like, share, and hit the bell so you receive notifications of my up and coming videos that I'm doing once a month. Well, I'm doing 2 or 3 a day, but I really want to ensure that the information that you receive from my page is information that you can use. So how did you all like this? What is your one takeaway from today's session? What did you hear that you feel is relative? Just put it in the chat. Anything special? Any what? Was it about let me see. The statistics? Oh yeah, speak up and be an advocate. Hey Sierra, my future daughter-in-law, how you doing? Yes. Speak up and be an advocate for yourself. And sometimes you have to be that for others as well. So I am not going to hold you all any longer. I appreciate you jumping on. It really, really helps. And so much appreciate your love, your hearts, and your wishes. Also great. Thank you so very much. And signing out. See you next time.